I never liked the idea of that trip. A week-long getaway at some overpriced resort for her best friend's bachelorette party? A group of married and single women drinking and partying in a tropical paradise while I stayed home, working, taking care of the house, and trusting her to remember the vows she made. A girl's trip, she called it. A well-deserved break. We never do anything for ourselves anymore, she had said. It's just for fun. You know, I'd never do anything stupid. I had smiled, nodded, even helped her pack, but something about it didn't sit right with me. Not because I didn't trust her, at least that's what I told myself, but because I knew what kind of place it was. Resorts like that weren't just about relaxing by the pool. They were playgrounds for drunk tourists who wanted to forget their responsibilities for a few nights. People went there to act single, and I knew exactly the kind of men who worked at those places. Young, fit, overly friendly. They were paid to be charming, paid to flirt, paid to make every woman feel like she was the most desirable thing in the room. It was part of the experience, part of the fantasy. But fantasies could turn into something real. I should have put my foot down. I should have said no. But what kind of husband does that? The controlling kind, the insecure kind. And I wasn't that guy. So I told myself to relax. She sent me pictures the first 2 days, smiling with the girls, holding colorful cocktails, lounging by the pool in bikinis that left nothing to the imagination. She looked happy, carefree. I hated to admit it, but I felt a little relieved. Maybe I was just overthinking things. Then the text slowed down. At first, it was subtle. Instead of full conversations, I'd get a quick, having fun, miss you, nothing else. No details. No updates. Then, by day 4, the messages stopped altogether. I try not to let it bother me. Maybe she was just caught up in the moment, enjoying her time. Maybe she didn't have good service. Maybe she just didn't feel like checking her phone. Or maybe she didn't want me to know what she was doing. That night, I laid in bed staring at my phone, waiting for a message that never came. My mind started running in circles, picking apart every little detail, every little change in her behavior. The doubts I had pushed down before started clawing their way back up. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was just tired. I told myself I'd hear from her in the morning. Then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed. A single message. Can we talk about last night? I feel guilty. I sat up so fast I nearly dropped my phone. My brain needed a second to process what I was looking at. The words didn't make sense at first. Then it hit me. The message wasn't for me. I stared at it, my whole body going ice cold. My hands tightened around my phone as something dark and ugly twisted in my gut. Guilty. She felt guilty. Not sorry. Not devastated. Not sick with regret. Just guilty. I took a breath, then another, forcing myself to stay calm as I typed out a response. What last night? No reply. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then 2. I called her. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I sat there in the dark, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, drowning out every rational thought. I didn't need to hear the details to know what had happened. I didn't need her to say the words. That one stupid text told me everything I needed to know. She had cheated, and she wasn't even going to tell me. She was going to come home, pretend nothing happened, smile like everything was fine, and hope I never found out. I ran a hand over my face, trying to think, trying to breathe, trying to push down the rage that was bubbling up inside me. But I couldn't. It was too late for that. I was done being the trusting husband. I was going to find out exactly what happened. And when I did, she was going to regret it. Morning came, but I didn't sleep. How could I? My mind had been spinning all night, playing out every possible scenario, every possible excuse she might come up with. But the truth was already there, staring me in the face. That message wasn't a mistake. It wasn't some innocent misunderstanding. She did something bad enough to feel guilty about. I checked my phone the moment the sun came up. Still nothing. No response to my message. No follow-up explaining herself. No missed calls. Just silence. I could picture her waking up in a hotel bed, rolling over, checking her phone, and realizing what she had done. Maybe she'd panic. Maybe she'd delete the text and pretend it never happened. Maybe she'd tell herself it was better if I didn't know. Too late. I got up, pacing the kitchen, drinking coffee I could barely taste. My hands were still shaking, my stomach a tight knot of anger and something worse, disgust, not just at her, but at myself, for trusting her, for letting her go in the first place, for being so damn blind. By noon, my phone finally buzzed. A text. Hey babe, sorry I didn't text, my phone died. We had a crazy night, LOL. Love you. Like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just sent a message meant for someone else. Like I was a goddamn idiot. I didn't respond. I stared at the words, my anger burning hotter with every second. She wasn't even trying to cover her tracks properly. She was stalling, testing the waters, seeing if I had seen the message, if I had figured it out yet. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. I waited an hour before replying. Sounds fun. What did you guys do? I imagined her sitting by the pool, phone in hand, heart skipping a beat. It took her 5 minutes to answer. Just partied at the resort. Met some fun people. Nothing crazy, LOL. Nothing crazy. Liar. My hands clench around my phone. I had seen the pictures she sent me earlier in the trip. Drinks by the pool, fancy dinners, all smiles. But now, the details were vague. Met some fun people. That was all she was giving me. I needed a push. Who'd you meet? This time it took longer. Almost 20 minutes. Just people at the bar. The bartender was really cool. He made us special drinks. The girls were obsessed with him, LOL. I stopped breathing. The bartender. It was almost too obvious. Too cliché. But the moment I read those words, everything clicked into place. Her message wasn't for me. She had sent it to someone she felt guilty about. Someone who was there. Someone she had been with. And who was always there. The guy serving them drinks all night. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. Instead, I forced myself to stay calm, to think. She was giving me just enough information to sound innocent, just enough truth to keep me from digging too deep. But it wasn't enough. Nice. What's his name? Another pause. Longer this time. Then, I don't remember LOL. I was pretty drunk. I almost laughed. The kind of bitter, humorless laugh that comes when you realize just how deep someone is willing to dig their own grave. She was already making excuses. She didn't remember? After calling him cool and saying the girls were obsessed with him? After spending an entire night drinking the special drinks he made for them? She was scrambling. I let her sit with the silence. Let her wonder if I believed her. Let her start to sweat. Then I typed, "That's weird. You sent me a text last night. Said you felt guilty. What was that about?" Delivered. Read. No response. Not for a long time. I pictured her stomach dropping, the color draining from her face, the frantic way she'd scroll through our messages, realizing her mistake. I waited, watched the 3 little dots appear, disappear, then appear again. She was trying to come up with a way out, trying to twist this into something innocent. Then finally, "OMG, babe, I didn't mean that for you. It was about a dumb fight we had with some guy at the club. It was nothing. A fight." Now she was inventing an entirely new story. I could almost respect the effort. Almost. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I had enough. She was lying to my face. And she thought I was dumb enough to buy it. That was the worst part. Not the cheating itself. Not even the pathetic excuses. The fact that she thought she could get away with it. She was coming home in 2 days. That gave me 2 days to decide exactly what I was going to do. And I already knew one thing for sure. She wasn't walking back into this house like nothing happened. Not a chance in hell. I didn't text her again that day. I let her sit with the silence. I wanted her to wonder what I was thinking, if I had bought her ridiculous excuse, if she had managed to talk her way out of this. She didn't text me again, either. That told me everything. She was scared, and she should be. I spent the rest of the night pacing the house, my mind running in circles. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. Her, in some dimly lit resort bar, laughing at some guy's jokes, letting him put his hands on her, letting him lead her somewhere private. Drunk or not, she had made a choice. And now, she was lying straight to my face, thinking she could sweep it under the rug. I kept rereading her messages. Met some fun people. Nothing crazy, LOL. The bartender was really cool. I don't remember LOL. I was pretty drunk. Lies. I knew exactly what kind of fun she had. I could see the whole thing playing out in my head, step by step. How she probably started with a couple of drinks, letting herself get caught up in the moment. How the bartender, some smooth-talking, tanned, pretty boy who did this for a living. Made her feel special. Made her feel young again. How the girls probably egged her on, giggling, encouraging, telling her it was just harmless fun. And then, at some point, she crossed the line. At some point, she stopped being my wife. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through her old texts. I looked at the pictures she had sent me earlier in the trip. The ones where she was smiling, relaxed, glowing in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. She had looked happy, not like a woman who was missing her husband, not like a woman thinking about the life waiting for her back home. And now, she was scrambling. By the next morning, she must have realized her silence wasn't working because I woke up to a long text. Babe, are you mad at me? I feel like you're being weird. I swear it was nothing. I just meant that text for the girls. You know how crazy they are, LOL. I love you, okay? Can't wait to see you. I almost laughed. It was pathetic. She knew I wasn't buying it. That's why she was trying to spin it now, playing the worried wife, acting like I was the problem for not responding. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the screen. I could blow it all up right now. Tell her I knew. Tell her she was full of shit. Tell her she could stay at that damn resort because she wasn't coming home to me. But no, that was too easy. She was expecting me to be pissed, expecting me to lash out, start a fight, demand answers. That's how these things usually went, right? The angry husband, the crying wife, the desperate apologies. I wasn't giving her that. I was going to let her walk through that door thinking she had one, thinking she had pulled one over on me. And then I was going to watch her world collapse. The next 2 days passed in a blur. I went about my usual routine, but everything felt different. The house felt colder. The silence was heavier. Even the sight of our wedding pictures on the wall made my stomach turn. Every time my phone buzzed, I ignored it. I knew she was trying to keep up appearances, trying to act normal. I wasn't interested. She didn't deserve normal. The morning of her flight, she texted me again. Landing at 5. Can't wait to see you, babe. I missed you so much. I bet she did. I didn't reply. I just waited. By the time I pulled up to the airport, the parking lot was packed with people coming and going, reuniting with their loved ones. I saw couples hugging, parents embracing their kids, friends laughing as they loaded their bags into cars. For a brief second, I wondered how many of these people were living a lie. How many husbands were smiling at wives who had just spent a week in paradise, doing things they'd never admit to? How many wives were stepping off that plane with a guilty conscience and a well-rehearsed excuse? I spotted her the second she walked out of the terminal. She was wearing a loose sundress, her hair still sun-kissed from the trip, her skin tanned. She looked different, lighter, freer, like she had left something behind at that resort. Or someone. The moment she saw me, she smiled. Wide, bright, the kind of smile she used to give me before life got in the way, before marriage turned into routine. She rushed toward me, dragging her suitcase behind her, and before I could react, she threw her arms around my neck. I didn't hug her back. I didn't even move. She pulled back slightly, searching my face. Wow, no hug, she teased, but I caught the flicker of hesitation in her eyes. I just stared at her, watched her smile falter, watched the first seed of doubt creep in. Good. She laughed, but it was nervous now. Geez, I guess someone really missed me, huh? I reached down, grabbed her suitcase, and tossed it in the trunk without a word. When I turned back, she was biting her lip, shifting her weight. She was waiting for me to say something, to ask how the trip was, to act normal. But I wasn't normal. Not anymore. Finally, she broke the silence. Babe, are you okay? I opened the car door, met her eyes, and smiled. A cold, knowing smile. Yeah, I said. I'm great. Then I got in the car. She hesitated for half a second before climbing into the passenger seat. And as I pulled out of the airport, driving her back to the life she had destroyed, I could feel it, the walls closing in around her. She had no idea what was coming, but she would soon, very soon. The drive home was suffocating. She sat next to me, shifting in her seat, sneaking glances in my direction, waiting for me to break the silence, waiting for me to ask her about her trip, to show some interest, to pretend like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I kept my hand steady on the wheel, my eyes locked on the road. I could feel the tension rolling off her, could hear her shallow breaths as she tried to figure out why I wasn't acting the way she expected. You're quiet, she finally said, forcing a small laugh. Did you miss me that much? I smiled, just enough to unnerve her. Something like that. That shut her up. The rest of the drive was silent, except for the occasional buzz of her phone. I caught her glancing at it, hesitating before picking it up, deleting messages, maybe, trying to cover her tracks before I could see them. It didn't matter. I already knew. When we pulled into the driveway, she let out a dramatic sigh. Ugh, I am so exhausted. That flight was brutal. She stretched her arms, faking a yawn. I just want to shower and sleep for like 10 years. She was trying to reset things, trying to act like she was coming home to a normal life, to a husband who would welcome her back with open arms. I grabbed her suitcase from the trunk and wheeled it inside, not saying a word as she followed behind me. The second she stepped inside, she paused, looking around. You cleaned? Yeah. She let out a nervous little laugh. Wow, you really did miss me. I didn't respond. She put her purse down on the counter, shifting from foot to foot, waiting for me to say something, do something. I could tell she was dying to fill the silence, to force the conversation back on a safe ground. So, she said lightly, what did you do while I was gone? I turned to her slowly, meeting her gaze. I thought. She blinked. About what? I took a step toward her. Her smile faltered. About your trip, I said. She forced another laugh, a little too high-pitched. Oh God, it was crazy. The girls got so drunk. You would have laughed your ass off. I didn't laugh. She swallowed, tucking her hair behind her ear. Seriously, I wish you could have seen it. The things we... Tell me about the bartender. Her mouth snapped shut. Her face went pale so fast. It was almost comical. Bartender? She echoed, trying to play dumb. I tilted my head. Yeah, the one you said was cool. The one who made you special drinks. The one you don't remember because you were so drunk. She stared at me, her lips parting slightly, but no sound came out. I took another step forward. You said you didn't remember his name. That's weird, don't you think? You remember everything else about the trip, except him. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. I could see the gears turning in her head, scrambling for a way out. Babe, she finally said, voice soft, pleading. Why are you acting like this? Like what? Like you think I did something wrong. I laughed. Actually laughed. Did you? She stiffened. Of course not. I let the silence drag out. Let her feel the weight of my stare. Let her feel my disgust soaking into every second that passed. Then I pulled out my phone, and I showed her the message. Can we talk about last night? I feel guilty. Her breath hitched. I watched her pupils shrink, her throat bob as she swallowed. I could see it in real time, the exact moment her lies started to unravel. That, she stammered. That wasn't about what you think. What do I think? She opened her mouth, closed it again. Then the tears came. Oh my God, babe, you're taking this the wrong way. It wasn't like that. I was drunk. I don't even remember what happened. I smiled. A cold, bitter thing. There it is. Her brows furrowed. What? The excuse, I said. You were drunk. You don't remember. Just some big mistake that totally wasn't your fault. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and for the first time, she wasn't faking it. She knew. She knew I knew. Babe, she choked out, reaching for me. Please. I stepped back. She froze. You're disgusting, I said. She gasped like I had slapped her. But I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone again, my heart hammering in my chest, and pressed play on the recording. A man's voice filled the room. I don't know what to tell you, man. Your wife came onto me. She wasn't that drunk. Her entire body went rigid. She told me she was married. She didn't care. If you're looking for an apology, I don't have one. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I let the words hang in the air. Let them crush her the same way they had crushed me. Then I turned the screen to her, showing her the messages I had exchanged with him. The bartender. He hadn't hesitated to tell me everything. She staggered back, her hand flying to her mouth. Babe, she whispered, shaking. I can explain. I tilted my head. Yeah? Go ahead. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. Because she knew there was nothing left to say. Her lies had collapsed. Her excuses had failed. And I was done. I turned, walked to the front door, and opened it. She stared at me, horrified. What were you doing? I didn't answer. I just stepped aside, gesturing to the open door. It took her a second to process it, to understand. Then the sobs started. No, please. You don't mean this. I didn't blink. You cheated, I said. You lied. You thought I'd never find out. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. But I did. She reached for me again, but this time, I didn't move. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. Nothing but disgust. Get out, I said. She shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face. Babe, please. I made a mistake. Not my problem. Babe, I love you. I laughed. Yeah? You sure as hell didn't love me when you spread your legs for that bartender. Her face crumpled. I pointed to the door. Leave. She stood there, shaking, waiting for me to change my mind. But I wouldn't. She had made her choice. And now, she had to live with it. Her breath hitched. Then, finally, she grabbed her purse, grabbed her suitcase, and she walked out. I slammed the door behind her. And just like that, I was free. The second the door slammed shut behind her, I felt it. Relief. Not sadness. Not regret. Not second-guessing. Just pure, unfiltered relief. The house was silent. For the first time in a long time, it actually felt like mine again. No more fake smiles. No more lying texts. No more pretending. She was gone. I leaned against the door, taking a deep breath. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My heartbeat had slowed. The weight that had been pressing down on my chest since the moment I got that text, the one she never meant for me, was finally gone. And I wasn't about to let it creep back in. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a drink, and downed it in one gulp. Whiskey. The good kind. The kind I've been saving for special occasions. I guess this counted. I stood there for a while, letting the burn settle, staring at nothing in particular. My mind was blank, empty in a way that almost felt foreign. No anger. No sadness. Just clarity. She was out of my house. Out of my life. And she wasn't coming back. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because she wasn't done. The first text came 5 minutes later. Please, babe. Just talk to me. I messed up, I know that. But I love you. We can fix this. Please don't throw everything away over one mistake. I didn't answer. Then another. You're my husband. I made a stupid choice, but that's not who I am. Please just call me. Still nothing. Then the missed calls started. 1, then 2, then 5, then 10. By the time the voicemail notification started rolling in, I turned my phone off completely and tossed it onto the counter. I wasn't interested in her excuses. I wasn't interested in her crocodile tears or her desperate attempts to manipulate me into forgiving her. She didn't deserve forgiveness. She didn't deserve another second of my time. I should have gone to bed. Should have let it go. Should have moved on. But some part of me, the part that wasn't done punishing her, wanted to know how far she'd go. So I turned my phone back on, and I listened. The first voicemail was just her sobbing. Not even words. Just shaky breaths and ugly crying, like she thought tears alone would fix everything. The second was the same. Then came the bargaining. Please just come outside and talk to me. I'm still in the driveway. I won't leave until you talk to me. I walked to the window, pulled back the curtain just enough to see her car parked at the curb, her silhouette slumped behind the wheel. Pathetic. The next voicemail was angrier. You can't just throw me out like trash. I am your wife. You don't just give up on a marriage because of one mistake. Funny. She hadn't seemed too concerned about our marriage when she was riding that bartender at the resort. I deleted it. The next one was worse. Fine. If you won't talk to me, I'll make you talk to me. You think you can just cut me out of your life like I'm nothing? I'll take everything. You hear me? I'll take half the house, half your money, half of everything. You'll regret this. And there it was. The real her. The version of her she had kept hidden behind fake tears and hollow apologies. I let the message play out, let the words sit in the air. Then I did the only thing that felt right. I laughed, because it was hilarious. She really thought she still had power here, that she could threaten me, intimidate me, manipulate me into crawling back. Like I was scared of her, like I'd ever let her take another dime from me. I walked to my desk, pulled out a folder, and flipped it open. The papers were already signed. The lawyer had made sure of it before she even got on that plane. I had already started the divorce process. All it had taken was one phone call, one meeting, and a little bit of legal advice. Turns out, When you cheat, you don't get much in the divorce settlement. She could threaten all she wanted. She was getting nothing. I grabbed my phone again, scrolling past the rest of her pathetic messages, and sent the only response she was ever going to get from me. Check your email. Less than a minute later, another voicemail. But this time, she wasn't crying. She was screaming, "You bastard! You can't do this to me." I could, and I had. I poured myself another drink, listening to her rage, letting it fuel the last bit of satisfaction I needed before I finally hit delete. Then I turned off my phone for good. Let her sit with that. That was the last time I ever spoke to her. She fought the divorce, of course. Drag it out. Try to play the victim, try to spin the narrative, try to make me look like the bad guy. It didn't work. The evidence was too strong. The messages, the call recordings, the confession from the bartender. She never stood a chance. She walked away with nothing. No house, no money, no sympathy, just the weight of her own mistakes. And me? I walked away free. No baggage, no regrets, no looking back. Because at the end of the day, that's the thing about cheaters. They always think they can get away with it. Until they don't. The day the divorce was finalized, I woke up feeling lighter. No more lawyers. No more negotiations. No more messages from her, begging, demanding, threatening. It was over. Official. I was a free man. I didn't celebrate. Didn't go out drinking. Didn't post some triumphant speech about how I had won. There was nothing to win. I had just cut off a parasite that had been feeding on me for years. She, on the other hand, she had lost everything. No house, no money, no support, just a stack of legal documents and a reminder of how badly she had screwed up. And the best part? I had made sure her reputation went down with her. Not through lies, not through petty revenge, just the truth. I didn't go around telling people what happened. I didn't need to. The moment the court documents were public, people started putting the pieces together. And the more they talked, the worse it got for her. Her friends, the ones who had hyped up that wild girl's trip, who had giggled and whispered and looked the other way, started distancing themselves. They didn't want to be associated with her. Her family, embarrassed, stopped defending her. Even her job? Gone. Turns out, cheating on your husband and trying to lie your way out of it doesn't exactly make you an ideal candidate for a company that values integrity. Who knew? I didn't see her again for months. Didn't think about her. Didn't care where she was or what she was doing. But then, one night, I was at a bar with some friends. Just a normal night. A couple of drinks, a couple of laughs, nothing crazy. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her. She was sitting alone at the bar, a drink in front of her, staring at her phone like she was waiting for someone to text. She looked different. The confident, glowing woman who had walked into that airport after her little girl's trip was gone. She looked tired, hollow, worn down by months of consequences she never expected to face. For a brief second, she glanced up. Our eyes met. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I saw it. Not anger, not arrogance, not excuses, just regret. She knew she had ruined everything, and she knew I was better off without her. I held her gaze for a moment, just long enough for her to see that I felt nothing. Then I turned back to my friends. Didn't wave, didn't acknowledge her, didn't care. And that was the real victory. I thought that moment at the bar would be the last time I ever saw her. That should have been the final chapter, the point where our lives split for good, where she faded into the background of my past. Just another lesson I'd learned the hard way. But cheaters don't let go that easily, especially not when they lose everything. The first text came 2 weeks later. "Hey, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I needed you to hear it." I stared at the message, my grip tightening around my phone. I should have ignored it, should have deleted it without a second thought. Instead, I let it sit there, unread, like a rotting piece of fruit left out in the sun. A few days later, another one. "I had a dream about you last night. About us. It felt so real. And then I woke up and, I don't know, I just miss you. I miss everything. I hate how this all turned out." I rolled my eyes and tossed my phone onto the counter. Pathetic. She had burned our marriage to the ground, stomped on the ashes, and now she wanted to stand there acting like she was mourning something she destroyed. It was almost funny. Almost. For weeks, she kept at it. Sometimes it was late-night texts, drunk, emotional, full of "I miss yous" and "I wish I could take it all back." Other times it was guilt trips. "I saw an old picture of us today. It broke me. I don't know how to move on from this. I don't expect you to forgive me, but can we at least talk? I feel like I need closure." Closure. She wanted closure. Like she was the one who got screwed over. Like she was the one who needed healing. I never responded. Because I didn't need closure. I had found mine the moment I slammed that door in her face. But she wasn't done. Because after weeks of unanswered messages, she showed up. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was in my backyard, beer in hand, finally enjoying the kind of peace I hadn't had in years. Then the doorbell rang. At first, I thought maybe it was a package. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe anything but what it actually was. I opened the door, and there she was, standing on my porch, looking like a ghost of the woman I used to know. She wasn't dressed up. No makeup. No effort to make herself look perfect. Just jeans and an old sweatshirt. Her hair pulled into a messy bun. Dark circles under her eyes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I just stared at her, and she stared back, swallowing hard, like she didn't even know where to start. Then, "Hey," I raised an eyebrow. "You lost." She let out a weak laugh, but it died almost immediately. "No, I needed to see you." "No, you didn't." That threw her off. I could see it in the way she hesitated, shifting her weight from foot to foot, hands twisting together like she didn't know what to do with them. She was nervous. She should be. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "Go home." Her face crumpled. "I don't have a home. Not my problem." She exhaled sharply, blinking up at me. "I know you hate me. I deserve that. But can we just talk?" I tilted my head, pretending to think about it. "Nah." She flinched, like the word had physically hurt her. Then, her voice cracked. I don't know what to do. I had to fight the urge to laugh. Because that wasn't my problem, either. She must have seen the amusement flicker across my face because she rushed forward, her voice breaking. "Please, just listen. I've lost everything. My friends won't talk to me. My family barely tolerates me. I can't even find a decent job because my last boss fired me when he found out why I got divorced. I don't even know who I am anymore." I stared at her, waited, because I knew what was coming next. And right on cue, "I miss you." There it was. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my jaw. "You miss me? Or do you miss having someone who actually gave a shit about you?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. I gave her a second, gave her a chance to be honest. She didn't take it. Instead, she did what cheaters always do. She reached for the only excuse she had left. "I was drunk. I never meant to hurt you. I don't even remember." I laughed. A deep, sharp, bitter laugh. "You remember." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "Stop lying. You remember. You made a choice. And you thought you'd never get caught." She blinked rapidly, shaking her head. "No, I swear." "You swear." I repeated, stepping closer. "You swore to me on our wedding day, too." That didn't mean shit either, did it? Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't work on me anymore. "I know you hate me," she whispered. I shrugged. "Hate takes effort. You're not worth the energy." She sucked in a sharp breath, her entire body trembling. And then she broke. Her shoulders collapsed, and for the first time, she really cried. Not the fake tears she used to manipulate. Not the dramatic sobs she used to guilt trip. Just pure, broken, real grief. I watched her unravel. Watched her realize there was nothing left to salvage. Nothing left to hold on to. She had lost, and she knew it. Finally, after a long, quiet moment, she wiped her face with her sleeve, sniffled, and nodded. "Okay," she whispered. Then she turned and walked away. I watched her go, watched her disappear down the street, shrinking into nothing but a bad memory. I shut the door, locked it. Then I walked back outside, sat in my chair, and took a slow sip of my beer. For the first time in years, I had nothing to worry about. No lies, no betrayal, no dead weight holding me down. Just peace. Real, honest peace. And damn, it felt good.